Let's wrap things up with the final game of the weekend, what should be a wild weekend. You've got Warsaw, Decatur Central in the 5A championship game on Saturday night at 7 o'clock. And I mean, this is a Warsaw team kind of playing with house money. They, as you mentioned earlier in the show, they had not won a regional championship before this year, but they have, man, earned their way. They've beaten, number one Concord. And the next week they beat number two Lafayette Jeff. Then last week they beat number three Maryville. Now they face number four Decatur Central. You can't say that the Tigers haven't earned their way there.
No, not at all. It's a great story. I mean, Bart Curtis is one of the best dudes that we deal with, and much deserved his first state championship appearance. Of course, the first state appearance for Warsaw as well. And it's just one of those programs that you felt like, was never up with the teams in the region and the teams up north and the teams here in 5A, 6A. And we've seen signs the last several years, knocking off Carroll last year was a real eye opener for some people, I think. And now they have a chance to win. Dropping down to 5A is a blessing in disguise, or an obvious blessing too for those that follow it. But you can't take anything away from Warsaw. They had the difficult task of going through 1, 2, and 3 to get to state, and they did. And you don't want to take anything away from Decatur Central because they're a really good football team, but you almost look at it and say, well, they knocked off Concord. They knocked off Jeff. I mean, they knocked off Maryville. They may as well win the whole darn thing. So it's really cool to see the Tigers get there. I'm sure the message from Coach Curtis is the job isn't done. And that's going to be the goal heading into Saturday night, is making sure they're not satisfied with just getting there.
When I look at Decatur Central, I mean, this is a team we saw last year in the 5A championship game against Snyder. And Ryan Buchanan and that Panthers run game, while it's schematically different from what Snyder does, Warsaw can really, really run the football. And Decatur Central had problems, especially with giving up big chunk yardage against Snyder. So, I was thinking about this matchup, and what Decatur Central struggled with last year plays to the strength of what Warsaw does. So if you're Bart Curtis, are you calling Kurt Tippmann being like, hey, man, I saw you guys run for 290 yards last year against them. Like, what was the key to breaking so many big plays? Because Buchanan had over 200 yards himself.
He did. And, remember that game, Decatur Central did a really good job on 90% of the runs for Snyder. It was those 10% that Uriah Buchanan and the running backs were just able to gash them. And that's what hurt. And that's the frustrating thing facing Warsaw with their style, right? Is you feel you're doing a good job containing them to 3-4 yards a carry, yet that's moving the chains. And that's demoralizing for an opponent. Not only are you eating up clock, but you're taking away possessions and know if they score on it as well. So that's the thing for Decatur Central, is I thought they did a really good job last year 85% of the time against Snyder's offense. It was just those 10, 15% that killed them. And it's almost the same principle, different style, but same principle with Warsaw is you can make some good plays and take them off schedule. But if you give up one 15-yard run or one 11-yard run on 3rd and 9, then Warsaw is in business. So I think all the pressure in the world's on Decatur Central. They're back here. They are accustomed to the week. But how do you combat that Warsaw offense with just a week to prepare for it? And teaching your kids is, when they're always going to fake the dive, you have to respect that. Your principles, keep an eye on all that stuff. And especially in a holiday week, that can be really difficult to prepare for.
Yeah, and you take a look at some of the strengths for Decatur Central. They've got Michael Kent. I can hardly read my own writing. Michael Kent, 14 sacks on the season. That's one of the strengths of their defense. Warsaw didn't throw it. I mean,
yeah, right.
It takes away that strength. And then you look at the offensive side. Last week you say, wow, they beat a Bloomington South team that's pretty good, 27-13, but they only had one offensive touchdown, had to settle for 2 field goals, got a kick return for a touchdown and a pick six. So those, the kick return for a touchdown and the pick six are not very unlikely that you're going to get a pick six against Warsaw based on the number of times that they throw it. And the kickoff return, I mean, you can't count on that every single week. So their quarterback's thrown for over 1,900 yards this season. But if you're Warsaw, you're like, you know what? Like, as long as we play sound fundamental football, don't give up a kick return for a touchdown, don't give up a pick six, like, we could be sitting pretty. I don't know. That's just me.
Right, and that's the thing too. Is if Warsaw, if you throw a pick six, you're probably not in a good position anyway because you're having
Yeah.
to go vertical, right? So yeah, for Decatur Central, I think the onus is on opportunities on offense. That if Warsaw is able to move the ball on the ground, then your possessions are going to be very limited, which means you better maximize your possessions and score points when you have the ball. And that's going to be the challenge for Decatur Central is you're probably not going to get a defensive touchdown. You'll be lucky to get a special teams touchdown. And if you can't stop Warsaw's running game, it's really going to put pressure on your offense. So for me, I like the matchup for Warsaw. I just think it's a team that's really humming right now. And Drew Sullivan's been tremendous
Mhm.
running that offense. And he's been the leading rusher each of the last couple of weeks. And he can pull it and make a lot of damage. And if you want to give it to Quentin Scott, then good luck on that too. So I really like Warsaw's chances. And of course, we're probably homers. We want to see Bart Curtis get a state title and Warsaw get a state title. But after what they've done, the Giants they've slayed through the playoff run, you feel like this is a really good matchup.
Yeah, no, I like Warsaw's chances. I think, they play what they do well plays into some of the areas that concerned us when we saw Decatur Central last year. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I just think and you'd love to see Bart Curtis win a state championship and what it would mean for that program, not even having made state before, but never making semi-state, never having won a regional. Like, it would be a cool moment for a program that is on the up and up and it has turned itself into a powerhouse here in Northeast Indiana.
It has. And remember, too, when it comes to mind, those Uriah Buchanan touchdowns last year or big runs were right up the gut. I mean, this wasn't getting to the edge and turning the corner. And when you look at what Warsaw does, their fullback dive, their runs in the interior, is that still a weakness for Decatur Central? Because Warsaw, the way they do things offensively, will definitely take advantage of that deficiency.
All right. As we wrap things up, what are you most looking forward to about this weekend? Like we started on the top of the show. I mean, we've never seen this before with four teams in our area. So what are you most looking forward to? Is it's
Yeah,
going to be a busy Thanksgiving weekend down in Indianapolis for the folks of the 260.
I love the opportunity for this area, Northeast Indiana, to really represent, and they're already doing it with four teams down there. But if they can go down there, good representation, bring home a couple trophies, then it validates this area. And sometimes we have chips on our shoulders and say other areas of the state don't respect the Northeast Indiana, and I'm sure other areas, the region has their own arguments with that, and for good reason. I feel like if we can come out of this week with a couple big trophies, that it continues to show at every level, at every class in this area, we have some teams that can really do it each and every year. So really looking forward to it. You need to get down there to have opportunities to win it. We have four teams getting down there. Let's see if we can bring home some hardware.
All right, man. We will be back next week, hopefully talking about some of those trophies coming back to Northeast Indiana. But for this week, he's Justin. I'm Glenn, and we'll see you next Monday on Inside the Zone.